Chop suey is one of the most famous Chinese dishes in American history. For decades, it appeared on menus across the country, from New York diners to small-town takeout shops, from elegant restaurants to cheap lunch counters. It was everywhere, and yet, you will not find it in China, not as a traditional dish, not as a national favorite, not as cultural heritage, because chop suey was never meant for China. It was invented for Americans. The story of chop suey is not a story about food. It is a story about survival. In the late 1800s, Chinese immigrants arrived in the United States in large numbers. They came to build railroads, to mine gold, to work jobs no one else wanted, and they were met with hostility, violence, laws, exclusion. By 1882, the United States passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, the first federal law to ban immigration based on race. Chinese laborers were barred from entering the country. Families were separated. Communities were isolated. Chinese immigrants were unwanted, but still needed. With few employment options available, many turned to food. Laundry and restaurants became lifelines, not because they were profitable at first, but because they were allowed. Yet even restaurants came with limits. Chinese immigrants were often barred from serving white customers directly. Some cities restricted where Chinese businesses could operate. Others enforced segregation quietly, through violence and pressure. To survive, Chinese cooks had to adapt, not just socially, but culturally. The food they brought from China was unfamiliar to most Americans. It used ingredients Americans didn't recognize, flavors Americans didn't trust, cooking methods Americans found strange. And in a climate of racism, unfamiliarity was dangerous. Chop suey changed that. The exact origin of chop suey is debated. There are legends, stories of late-night meals, of improvisation, of scraps thrown together for hungry guests. Some say it was created in San Francisco. Others point to New York. But what matters is not where it was invented. What matters is why. Chop suey was simple. Meat, vegetables, a light sauce, no strong spices, no unfamiliar textures. It looked like something Americans already knew. It felt safe. The name itself tells the story. Chop suey comes from the Cantonese phrase sap suey, meaning odds and ends, leftovers, mixed pieces, not a dish tied to tradition, but one built from adaptation. Chop suey was flexible. It could be changed based on what ingredients were available. It could be made cheap. It could be made fast. And most importantly, it could be made American. By the early 1900s, chop suey exploded in popularity. It became a national obsession. Newspapers wrote about it. Politicians ate it. High society restaurants served it. There were even chop suey houses, restaurants dedicated almost entirely to the dish. For many Americans, chop suey was their first experience with Chinese food. And it didn't feel foreign. It felt modern. This was not an accident. Chinese restaurateurs understood something crucial. If Americans rejected Chinese people, they might still accept Chinese food, as long as it was familiar. Chop suey didn't challenge American tastes. It reassured them. But this acceptance came at a cost. Chop suey was never a celebration of Chinese culture. It was a compromise. Chinese cooks were not showcasing their heritage. They were disguising it. Authentic regional dishes were hidden behind the kitchen doors. What came out to the dining room was a version of China, filtered through American expectations. And it worked. By the 1920s, Chinese restaurants spread far beyond Chinatowns. Small towns with no Chinese population still had Chinese restaurants. Because chop suey traveled, it became affordable comfort food. Quick, filling, non-threatening. Exactly what America wanted. But something was lost in the process. Americans began to believe chop suey was Chinese. They assumed it represented a real tradition, a real culture. It didn't. In China, food is regional, deeply specific, tied to geography, climate, and history. Chop suey belongs to none of those places. It belongs to America, and that makes some people uncomfortable. Because it forces a difficult truth. Much of what America calls ethnic food was created under pressure. Chop suey is the result of exclusion. It exists because Chinese immigrants were not allowed to fully participate in American society. They had to soften themselves, blend in, become palatable. The dish became a mask. Yet, chop suey should not be dismissed as fake. It is real, just not in the way people think. It is real American history. Chop suey represents innovation under constraint, creativity born from discrimination, a strategy for survival. Without chop suey, Chinese restaurants might not have survived the early 20th century. Without it, later dishes, like chow mein, orange chicken, and General Tso's, might never have existed. Chop suey laid the foundation. Over time, American Chinese food continued to evolve. Menus expanded, spices returned, regional dishes slowly emerged, but chop suey remained, a reminder of where it all began. Today, chop suey has largely disappeared from menus, replaced by newer favorites, but its influence remains everywhere. In takeout culture, in fast casual dining, in how Americans understand foreign food. Chop suey wasn't a lie. It was a negotiation. It asked a simple question. How do you survive in a country that does not want you, but is willing to eat your food? The answer was chop suey, invented not to represent China, but to survive America. This is Chop Suey Stories, where food reveals the truths that history textbooks leave out.